I was teaching Nehemiah from this stage on Sunday, okay? So that's right. I'm doing great work and I cannot come down. Wow, what a great night. This is so much fun. I'm so glad you guys showed up. So, I was on my regular Wednesday President's Call this afternoon with people all over the country, and we had the representatives from our communications area of the organization talking, and we had our marketing director. Her name is Diane Bishop, and she was talking about things that our organization is doing in marketing. And she said something about the place where Dr. Kenn's bio was, and I'm thinking, well, I know him, but I really should read that before tonight. And so I stopped the call. I said, Diane, where is that? I'm on the website. And she guided me to it, and I opened it up, and I, thank you very much, continue. And I took some notes from it. It's really helpful. I think God is in the marketing, too. So this is how the bio starts. Reverend Dr. Kenn Gordon is responsible for bringing the teachings of science of mind to the world. Isn't that a relief? You're off the hook. It also says, as spiritual leader of Centers for Spiritual Living, it is his goal to help awaken humanity in order to create a world that works for everyone. I'm glad someone is in charge. Dr. Kenn travels the world speaking to everyone from government and leaders, religious leaders, to individual seekers of ageless spiritual principles synthesized in the teachings of Science of Mind by Dr. Ernest Holmes. He writes a weekly blog, not Dr. Holmes, but Dr. Kenn writes a weekly blog that you can link to through csl.org and a regular column for Science of Mind magazine. In 2009, Dr. Kenn was a featured speaker at the Parliament of World Religions in Melbourne, Australia, along with the Dalai Lama and former President Jimmy Carter. The same year, his book, Mind and Manifestation, was published. And that's all really cool stuff, but here's the most important thing. Dr. Kenn is co-founder of Center for Spiritual Living in Kelowna, British Columbia, with his amazing and beautiful wife, Reverend Dr. Deborah Gordon. And you'd know what I was saying if you ever met Deborah. So that's the formal stuff to say about Dr. Kenn. What I want you to know is that I knew right away when I met him that we had some important things to do in the world, and I am very grateful that he has chosen to be with us at this time and to share his vision and his work in the world. It is essential to who we are as a spiritual movement, and it's about God always being in the right place at the right time. God showed up as Kenn just in the right way for us, for our movement, and for the world. Amen. And I want to share my favorite Hafiz poem to you, sir, because this is the truth. The first time I saw you, I knew we would be friends. The first time I heard you laugh, dear pilgrim, I knew it would not take me long to turn back into God. Dr. Kenn Gordon.
Should I call you an Abacus Mary, or Saint Mary would probably be better. Mary's absolutely right, though, that nothing ever comes from headquarters. And you think I'm kidding, but if it comes from headquarters, we're in trouble. Yeah. It's better that it comes from you, the humanity, the field. You know, I can't help but think, I understand they just elected a new pope. The white smoke just came out, so blessed be that. And I'm certain that that's going to be a blessed gift from God to all of us in some way, in some fashion, in some manner. However, I've been contemplating on it recently, and I've been contemplating on the fact that he's elected by the Cardinals. First off, he's elected by the Cardinals. And the Cardinals became Cardinals because they did such a good job at headquarters that they got to become Cardinals because they supported it so well. So you have headquarters electing your leader and wondering and expecting something different to happen or to come out of it, or to have some transformational healing take place. when what we have is hierarchy electing hierarchy electing hierarchy based on a foundation of hierarchy being the thing that they wanted it to have. And like Dr. Mary said, that part that's gone past its point that needs to be thrown out, that idea. And we are immersed in ideas that need to be thrown out in our civilization, in our society. The sky is the limit. There is no limit. What's the limit is the limit to our belief. What we can make real through our own embodiment of what our ideas and what our thoughts are. And we live in a world that is designed and set up, that is run by an infinite intelligence that only operates for goodness, only operates for love, only operates for light. And yet somehow or other we within have an ability within our thought pattern to be able to narrow it down and create a limitation. And to a large degree what we've done is we've taken the limited thought from thousands of years ago and we've maintained it today, and we keep going and wonder why things don't change. Why things aren't different in our world around us, and why we continue to demonstrate and manifest and bring into being the same things that we did thousands of years ago. Things like starvation and war, and things like people in pain and suffering. And we create and recreate for the lack of a bigger idea. Because we don't want to give up that old thing, that obsolete thing that Dr. Mary was talking about, to allow that greater light, that greater brightness, that greater joy, that greater happiness, that greater truth to enter into our experience. We want it. Everybody wants it. Not just those of us in this room, or even those of us in New Thought. Everybody on this planet wants it. And to the degree that they're willing to give up the old ideas is to the degree that they will be able to get it into their lives or have it in our circumstances. And until we expand that idea to a greater idea, until we grow our thoughts behind it and surrender and release a lot of the things that we've been holding on to, what's going to happen to us is we're going to continue to re-demonstrate over and over and over again the same thing. Time in, time out, time in, time out. Organizations are crucibles, they're containers. They're not meant to grow, they're not meant to expand except by their service, what they do. I just finished reading this wonderful article. I think it's from a gentleman by the name of Dan Hutchis. Please forgive me if I got it wrong. But he was writing, and in his writing what he said was, he said that the board of trustees of a church does not own the church. He said that the members in the congregation of the church do not own the church. He said what the board of trustees and the membership owns is they own the responsibility of the vision. To bring the vision into manifestation. To bring it forward into the truth, into the life around us. It's indicative of the way that we think, that we have a tendency to go back into our organizational structures and expect something out of it, when the something that it is in the first place created to be able to direct the vision of the whole, not the vision of the small. And so it demands of us an ability to be able to expand out of it, to be able to have a voice, and to be able to speak up. To be able to elect our leadership from the body of the organization and the movement, not from the cardinals. Not from the limited few that get to set what the rules are. Now you can expand and project this anywhere you want. You can put it in Congress, you can put it in the Senate, you can go to Canada, you can put it there, you can go to Afghanistan, you can place that anywhere you want. But I will tell you, if the body spoke truly and honestly, that the end result would be we would have the world we seek. Why? Because we want something, and we know that that is something that we desire. And what we've been told, and what we believe, and what we hold on to is the idea that it can't happen. And it can happen. And it will happen. It will happen one way or the other. Raymond Charles Barker, who was one of my teachers, once said that when he had problems or conflicts in his life, what he would do is he would go by himself and close his den door and sit in his den, and he would sit there and he would say, "Barker, you need a new idea." For me, that is, I wasn't teaching the Bible and I wasn't teaching Hinduism last Sunday. I was teaching Barker. But for me, what that means is we go into the quiet solitude of our own mind and we demand that greater idea. We demand that something come forward from us that is greater than what we have. In every consideration, in every block, in every obstacle, every single time we run across something which is uncomfortable or discomforting, what we do is we go and ask ourselves what the greater idea behind that is. Because there is a greater idea that is steeped in truth itself, that is steeped in spirit, that is steeped in the universal intelligence that has no limitation when it's given into the absolute, but has all the limitations that we put on it in the relative, that we make so, that we make happen, that we create. And so we find ourselves in a situation where over and over and over again we're repetitive with the obsolete ideas. Because we can't believe that it'd be possible to have something different or something bigger. And we create it in our own individual experience as well as creating it into the macro or the national or international experience as well. And we hold on to it through these funny little things. What we do is we attempt in some way or another to sustain and to maintain our life the way that it is rather than change and move forward from it. You might notice that in your own experience, that we're trying to hold on to it. Now, I came here this week specifically because Dr. Mary and Dr. Blaine are here, and Dr. John. And I realized that there is an incredible amount of leadership that's sitting here. As a matter of fact, there are 3 of the 10 families of New Thought that are represented here by their leaders, which is an incredible thing. Because I'll tell you something, is that what I just finished saying you already know if you took Basic Science of Mind 101, or the 100 series, whatever we call it now. I can't recall. It comes from headquarters. But whatever that 100 series is, that entry-level series that we have, it teaches you right off the bat what I'm talking about. It really, really does. And somehow or other, though, what we are in is we are in an organization that knows that truth, that teaches that truth, that attempts to live that truth, attempts to put wheels under it to make it move. And yet the tendency, at least from my experience, is that we still seem to lean back to try to sustain the organizational structure rather than allow the new idea just to blow the doors off and let us go somewhere with it. To really do what our vision says we should be doing, as opposed to the maintenance of our structure that we've had for so long, that we hold so beautifully, that we cradle like a baby in our arms. And rightfully so. It has a history and it needs respect, it needs love, but it also needs a new idea. And it's not just Centers for Spiritual Living, it's all of it needs a new idea. This teaching called New Thought, this teaching that we have, this teaching that we inherited, has the capacity to transform the world, to make it a world that works for everyone. It has the capacity within it and the potential within it to do it, and it can do it in a heartbeat. But in order for it to happen, what we need to do is we need to discard some of the old ideas that we've had in society so that we can awaken and be known and let known that we really stand for something that everybody stands for. I remember during the Cold War crisis, my father was somewhat of a hawk and I was somewhat of a dove, and I remember talking to him and I remember saying, do you really think that if you went to the Soviet Union and stood in front of 1 million people and asked how many people want to have war, that anybody would raise their hand? And his answer was, no, not really. And I said, and here in North America, do you really think that anyone in the Western world, if you drew 1 million people together and asked them whether or not they wanted to have violence or do violence to others on their own land in this country or in this world, do you think anybody would say yes? No, I don't really think. So, okay, so what we stand for is a democracy, but somehow or other, what the people want, the 1 million people want, isn't happening for us. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Does anybody here think somebody in this world should go without water? No. Does anybody here think somebody should go without food? No. Does anybody here think somehow or other that we have some license to hold all of educational facilities just to ourselves and nobody else should have it? No. How about medical care? Do you think that you have the right to go someplace and violently take something from somebody else? Do you think somebody has the right to come and do that for you? So how come we have it? I'll tell you how come, because we have obsolete ideas that aren't being placed into the world around us and not becoming the form. We hold on and retain to these ideas, and we do it so that what we can do is continue to sustain our structures around us, because God only knows what would happen if it fell apart. But I tell you, there's a power in this universe which will not allow it to fall apart. It will not allow it to get on its knees. The power is that power of spirit, the power of God, the power of Allah. Whatever you choose to call it, it is there, it exists. And it will work in perfection if we remove the blocks, if we surrender ourselves to it and we allow it to happen. If we actually put ourselves forward and say, take this oldness from me and put something new in its place. Put something new in its place. A fresh idea. Something that supports what I'm looking for, that doesn't detract from it and take away from it. We are steeped in the fear of loss. The fear of loss of what? Dr. Mary mentioned Social Security. One small little thing. Expand it out to your entire lives. We get steeped in it because we don't have the faith. We don't have the trust in what we believe. And then we wonder why we don't expand as New Thought, expand as an organization. And the answer is because we're steeped in the old ideas. And you want to transform, you want to grow, you want to move, you want to make this a world that works for everyone, you want to awaken, then you have to let go of what you got right now that's holding you stuck in the place that you're at.
Amen.
I always wanted to talk to the choir. I was standing in my backyard one day, and there was a pile of bees there. And I was looking at the bees, and I've told this story many times, but it's very pertinent for what I'm talking about here tonight. There were a pile of bees that were buzzing around. And I remember my grandchildren were coming over, so I thought I should really get rid of those bees so they don't sting my grandchildren. And then my mind went, as my mind has a tendency to go, it went to this place of saying, well, if I were to go to get rid of the bees, what would happen is the bees would attack me when I went to get it. Because the bees, you see, would think that their job in life is to sustain the hive. Their job in life is to maintain the hive, to protect the queen no matter what. That's what they would do. The minute I would go there, they would attack in order to be able to protect. But then I got thinking about it, and actually I think the bees, what they do is they create honey. So through their existence, they have a byproduct. And the byproduct is that beautiful substance, honey. So I'm thinking, yeah. But then I remember back somebody telling me, a biologist, saying that if bees didn't exist on this planet or on this plane, then no life would exist. Because bees are necessary in order to pollinate everything. I'll tell you where we are in humanity. We think that we need to protect and sustain everything. That's what happens to us. We think we need to protect and sustain our organizations. We think that we need to protect and sustain our families. We think that we need to protect and sustain our governments, our nations, and that's where we go. And we operate from that consistently and constantly, putting it back out again. Maybe perhaps our real job is to create the economy that we have, but I don't think so. For that would be like a bee creating the honey. Our real job is an idea that's greater than any of us know, and that is to sustain life itself. We have a calling, we have a purpose, we have a mandate in life, and that is to awaken humanity. That is to change the world to a better place. That is to bring in being the truth of what we speak about for ourselves as individuals and for the world out there. This is what's called upon us. That's the small idea that we have, that we need to sustain something. The great idea is the one that we were here for a purpose. Every human being on this planet, everything on this planet is here for a purpose. We know that. Biologists teach us. I mean, every one of us. I remember in Palm Desert when I was a farmer in thermal India, I remember that they imported all these gnats to pollinate all the dates. And so there was a thing called the Coachella wave, which you walk around like this because the gnats are always in your eyes. And I always remember that I hated those gnats. But I even believed that they were there for a purpose. They're there to pollinate something. They're there, they have a reason to be. And we as a human race have a tendency to believe that everything has a reason for being, except us. We hold out on our own selves. We kind of think, I mean, has anybody ever heard the term, the world would be a better place if it weren't for human beings? I mean, that deprecation does not work. The world is a better place because of us. What we can choose to do is start moving it in that particular direction and moving it in that area. You see, we have a purpose in life. And our purpose is being stuck by hanging on to old ideas. And we hold on to those obsolete ideas because we're frightened to let them go. And the reason we're frightened to let them go is because we don't have the faith of our own teaching. We don't hold it in our hearts to actually believe that it's so. We talk about God as an outer experience, even though we know intellectually it's supposed to be an inner one. When Mary was up here speaking and she was talking about Johnny Coleman talking about God did it, God did it, God did it. That's exactly the truth. There is no separation. That we get to control it within our own mind and within our own direction, within our own intention, with our own willingness. And it wouldn't take many of us to change our minds to transform this world. It really wouldn't. It wouldn't take that many at all. We could get the collective consciousness moving. And as soon as it starts moving, it'll just start moving and moving and moving and moving. And it's happening now anyway. You probably have noticed it. It's just not called New Thought. It's called something else. And it isn't organized or structured. It doesn't have the beauty of having those containers or those crucibles that we talked about that we call organizations. We have enough people in New Thought right now to have a collective consciousness for this nation in North America. We really do. We have enough associated people that if we actually started working together effectively, what we would do is we would find that we could transform it. And you know what? Just like everybody else, nobody's got more in common with the New Thoughter than we do. We are New Thought. Everybody's got something in common with someone. Got way, you know, no matter what somebody comes into my life, I probably have more in common with them than I have in separation. The problem is, though, is that in order to protect and suppress something, I look for the things that I'm suppressing. Believe me, I speak from experience. I speak from experience. When we brought the two organizations together, there was any number of thousands of people who didn't want it to happen because of things that were different. They kept saying, oh, we can't do that because we don't do it that way. But you do it this way, yeah. Well, why don't we support and build on that instead of building on the part that doesn't work? We have huge work to do. Huge work to do. You want to transform the world? You want to make it a better place? You want to awaken? You want others to awaken so that they can help and they can produce and support that and supply that? We have to come together. And that means that we have to rise above our differences that we have with each other to the greater idea that really understands that there's really only one thing that's happening. And that one thing is spirit manifesting itself over and over and over again in perfection according to our perception and according to our beliefs and intentions. It just keeps reproducing itself. Give it a new idea and we'll get a new demonstration, a new form, a new experience, a new thing. It happens. Everybody knows that. Everybody here has had a bigger idea than the one that they had before and seen the outpicturing and the difference in it. So what say we stop being fearful of things? What say we stop talking about organizations and start talking about our vision? What say we put our hearts and our souls behind the creation of a world that works for everyone instead of the creation of an organization or a structure that'll hold it up? Let's say that we take that from that micro and we put it into the macro of the world itself and we place it out there as well. And that we start standing in support of that. And we start promoting and prompting that. And we start singing the praises of that and demonstrating the testimony of that. I'll tell you what would happen, is we would change in a minute. We would turn on a dime. That's how quick it would happen. It would just happen. But to do it, we have to put down our differences. And we have to start seeing our sameness. And we have to start holding our sameness and loving our sameness and participating in our sameness and celebrating our sameness. You can't afford to live in a world which is divided anymore. It doesn't work for us. It's time to change and time to transform. Would you like to change or would you like to transform?
Yes.
You want to close with prayer?
Yes.
So let's join together. And let's recognize and know that there is God and absolutely nothing else. There is only one intelligence, and each and every one of us is unified with it at depth. This is not an idea that's flashing through my conscious mind. It is the very core of my and your being. It is the truth of who we are. So I speak my word right here and right now for every person in this room and for every person that is open and receptive to this consciousness, this idea. And I dissolve any idea in my life right here that in any way acts as an impediment to the development, the goodness, and the growth of the world itself. I allow that in my life manifested before me is a world that doesn't just work for us, but works for all. That it comes into being through a divine grace and requires absolutely nothing from any of us, with the exception of the surrender of an idea that we have held close for so long. So I demand that spirit within me and within you operate right now, moving throughout the consciousness of each of us, and dissolving any idea, any spot, any place that appears to be a hurdle that prevents us from bringing into being the joy, the light, the beauty, and the grace of God itself into our experience. Doing this and accepting this, I know that our lives have been changed at depth now. That we will never again see the world from the small idea that we saw it once before. That as we move forward from this place into this world around us, everything has been transformed and everything continues to transform. For there has been a motion that has been set, and it attracts to it everything and all things required in order to manifest and bring into our experience a world without fear and a world that is open for change. Accepting this and expecting this, I give unconditional gratitude that it is already so right now. And I surrender it back into that universal subjective mind that is your mind, that mind is my mind, that mind that is all mine. And I demand that it be my truth and I live from it. And so it is.
And so it is.
Bless you.